I shall sign.
Yes, you shall sign.
We are now deciding on the values of our future Europe. So let us do that without abstaining all moral responsibility to corporations. We are, after all, in Europe in 2012, not in the 1980s cyberpunk dystopias.
Tonight you will dream about your signatures movement.
This is a privacy-friendly browser which doesn't store your IP number. They even make it here like now offers anonymous results on the sister website. I use it for some things, but normally the search results are more awkward. So if I Google myself, for instance.
Because there are less information on it, because less people use it.
Well, partially that also. But it also ranks pages differently, so you can see here that the European Parliament website for me only comes as a kind of lower search result, whereas this YouTube video from Romania actually is surprisingly high ranked. Are these the tabled ones?
Yes.
Okay. No, it's okay.
You think
It's
it
just
will be
printed
okay?
on both sides. So when we had the presentation of the draft opinion in the industry committee, I think the commission, when they made their comment, they were like, we're very happy that the committee has respected our ambition to make a regulation, and we're very happy that the parliament endorses this, but it's also important that the parliament doesn't forget our other objective with this regulation, which is to protect personal data. So that was kind of a brutal comment, I think, to make on the draft opinion.
We are happy that the Parliament overall supports the Commission's objectives and the regulation as such, and the one-stop shop that we are introducing in order to simplify the legal environment for the business, which is one of our main objectives. Of course, the other objective is to enhance the fundamental right to data protection, and we have to have the two objectives in mind when we examine this regulation, and we have to find the right balance.
This can be one of those stories that I tell people later, at the time when I wrote my name 223 times in a row. So this is another type of tool that I use now, which is script blocker, so that no web page can run scripts on my computer without me knowing about it. There's actually a surprising amount of scripts in the world. I think it's like too much to really be practical for people to implement a lot. It would be easier if there was, I don't know, some kind of a legislation that maybe helped citizens know what happens with the data anyway.
Are you done?
151. Är Henk här?
And what intent you said?
He called and wanted us to
Kommer
meet
Henk
at the
komma
elevator.
hit? Har du fått tag på honom?
He wanted us to meet him at the elevator now because we're under, otherwise we'll be late.
Vänta, 152. 153. I am on 153, so I have 70 left. I will be back in like 40 minutes to complete this. Is it too late?
Yeah, I think it's. I need to. Yeah.
No worries, continue.
Yes.
I will drag Henk here and say that we will have to be late because you have to sign. Just
Okay.
continue signing.
Yes. We know from 17 years with the Data Protection Directive that companies that process or control personal data often do not apply suitable protection methods, even when they could easily do so, we as a public and as persons have an interest in keeping authorization and documentation in.
Using the legislative tool might be the better way to raise citizens' awareness about how their data is being used.
I don't think necessarily that legislation would help citizens become more aware of how their data is being used. But if we assume that legislation is normally upheld, as in we have the aspiration of having legislation that is actually enforceable,
Yeah.
then one would assume that a citizen who does read that law and does have expectations on how their data is being collected and by whom and for what purposes would be able to rely on the objectives and the aims of the law to actually be upheld.
Yeah, and they can sue people or companies infringing
Yes.
their rights.
But then what's going to happen, because the presentation of the draft report was a couple of days ago, so is there room for any more change or what?
Well, I guess in the main committee, which is the Civil Liberties Committee, they will only have the deadline for amendments on the 27th. So we tabled all of our amendments on the Industry Committee opinion in December.
I will try to be faster.
Okay.
And I think you can see it also on the signatures that my hand is getting more tired.
And now in the main committee also there will be an amendment procedure. And there's still some stuff to work on in the regulation, the way that it was presented in the Civil Liberties Committee, and I hope that we will see a stronger regulation come out at the end than the quite compromised version that we saw during the presentation.
The lights are on again, but no sunshine to let me know that everything's fine. Oh, remember this life you lead, and look at yourself behind the steam. The sun is slipping through out of my eyes. Surely this is no big surprise. Oh, now every day comes so quickly, and how do I take my coffee? I forget
223. Whoa!
Wait.
Oh, there's another one.
That's the last one.
Okay. 1.
Thanks. Well done.
grip as it all comes creeping in. I need a rhythm, and these flashing lights don't count me in.
This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by
Freaking.com. Let's talk Cop Block and their interesting new endeavor. The early 20th century author G.K. Chesterton once said, "Ideas are cheap, but what really counts is doing an idea." What Cop Block is doing now is sort of the realization, or the attempted realization, of an idea that's been kicking around for a long time. There was an article back in 2002 on antistate.com by Warren Tilson. It recommended the establishment of a freedom insurance institution. Tilson said, quote, "What I am proposing is a system of insurance that if you are arrested on some political crime, lawyers will be dispatched as well as activists and propagandists," unquote. Tilson correctly recognized that the first hurdle that such an organization would have to jump over, and the biggest hurdle, would be protecting itself. Well, copblock.org has instituted a program it calls copblock.org Protection. Whether they read Tilson's article or not, they have essentially started doing, or trying to do, what Tilson had in mind, although they seem to be missing the lawyer aspect. If you go to copblock.org/protection, you'll see that at least as of early January, or some point during January 2013, they were already offering copblock.org protection memberships. For around $50 a month, they were promising to come to your aid in the event that you got in trouble. certain types of trouble anyway. They said they would provide a video, a media push, a social network push. They would gather information regarding your situation, or presumably this would involve background searches of the people who are coming after you. And they would have a man on the ground who would be with you in person to assist with various stuff that you might need. So it seems like it was almost exclusively focused on using the media and their own publicity capability to put pressure on anyone that comes after you for victimless crime, if they're from the government anyway. However, Tilson's warning may have already borne fruit, this idea that you have to protect yourself first as an organization doing this kind of thing. The copblock.org/protection is already out of action in a sense. There's a message on the page that says, quote, "This idea is currently on hold. You can review the information, but no memberships are being accepted at this time. If you're currently a member, ADAMO will be in contact with you shortly, and your membership services are still covered," unquote. So maybe I should say they're partially out of action. Now, I don't know if this was because they received threats, or if it was because they got too much response, were overwhelmed with numbers. But they've taken, I think, this idea further than anyone else ever has toward being a reality. I think back around 2006, I experimented with the idea of doing something like this myself. I determined that the numbers weren't really adding up, and then the Ridley Report took all the wind out of the sails of everything else I was looking at doing. So I didn't get very far with the idea. They've gotten further than I have. But one thing I would say, it seems like they will probably need, if they want to do something like this, they're going to need more than just the ability to provide media coverage. I think they need a more holistic approach. Tilson was on the money when he said they need lawyers involved in something like this. I like the way you put it. Lawyers will be dispatched, as well as activists and propagandists. You need a mix of all three, probably. Something else to keep in mind is that you don't want to just have someone trying to generate media. It would be better if you had someone besieging the offices of the people who have arrested you. Peaceably besieging. But the idea is if you get arrested and you're covered by some kind of freedom